Welcome to part 14 of creating visual VFX in Blender. In this video, we'll be continuing on from the last video in which we started creating this lightsaber duel. In the last video, we started with raw footage of Noah and Brad fighting with toy lightsabers, and we added the beginnings of a lightsaber effect, and we got pretty far. In this video, we're going to continue on from that video and finish off the lightsaber effect so we have a finished scene. So what's left to work on? Well, as you can see in the first frame of our lightsaber duel between our two actors, the lightsaber that one of the actors is holding should be behind his head, but it's not. What we have to do is we have to hide lightsabers that go behind elements like people's arms and hands and heads in the actual shot, so it looks like they're in the right spot. We're also going to be sorting out the order of the lightsaber, so if the green lightsaber goes in front of the purple lightsaber or vice versa, it actually can be reordered like that. And in the last part of this video, we'll be adding some digital color grading and taking away some of the colors like the blue sky in the scene to make a more ominous looking scene. Just a note that I actually recorded part 13 and part 14 of this video series in one take and ended up deciding to split it into two parts for the sake of the length of these tutorials. So when we jump back into the video in just a moment, it'll be like I'm just getting right back into it without any pause. Before we jump back into it though, of course, if you like this video or if you learned something, go ahead and click on that like button below this video on YouTube. And if you want to see more videos like this one in Blender and in tech, click on that subscribe button as well. Of course, check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/borncg. But let's go ahead and dive on in right where we left off. Unfortunately, when you are fighting with a lightsaber or anything like this, the blade might go behind things, and that means that you'll have it go in front of your head or arm or somebody else when it should go behind them. So how do you fix that? Well, we're actually going to use, if you can guess it great, a mask to get rid of part of the lightsaber. So we're going to make a removal mask. So I'm going to go to a frame where it's necessary to get rid of the lightsaber, which happens to be actually on frame 1. And I'm going to make a new mask. So up in the movie clip editor window, I'm going to go over to Brad's head and I'm going to press this little plus button to make a new mask. And I'm going to rename it hide green, or pardon me, hide red, because we're going to hide the red lightsaber, which is actually purple. And so with that new mask, I'm going to make it. So I'm going to just make it a rectangle. So I'll put one down on Brad's chin there, and then maybe one up here, and then one maybe here, and then actually that one can go up there, and then one, I'll hold control and click right there. And now I'll go to mask toggle cyclic. I like using rectangular masks because it's easy to manage, just 4 points. If you have a mask that has like 50 points, then it will be very hard to animate and keep track of, and you just waste all your time. You can make these curved just by dragging the edges again. So I'm going to do, whoops, I'm going to grab a few edges here just to make it. I'm more concerned about just that little section and this section here. So I'm going to do something like that, and then maybe something like that just for fun. And so I've got, you know, the mask in the right spot roughly. I can play with these handles, and I've got it on that frame. Now to make this work, I do need to animate this mask, and it only actually needs to be in the right spot when the lightsaber is having issues. Otherwise I can just put that mask somewhere else. But how do you actually cut away from the lightsaber? Well, if you zoom in on where the lightsaber is, in fact, I'm going to leave these nodes out of the way, but I'm going to make that window smaller, and the node editor window over here with no backdrop bigger. You'll recall that if I press A to deselect all my nodes and then tap C and scroll to make that bigger, all of these nodes, these ones right here, are the ones that make my lightsaber. Okay? And I'll press escape to get rid of that circle select. This one right here is an input. I'll make this window full screen actually. This is the input mask. And so before it goes and gets blurred, before it uses the mask after it's blurred to actually get rectangles of white and purple, which are already blurred, and before it stacks those two things and puts them on top of the footage, before it even gets to this blurring, we're going to remove some of it. And we're going to do that by using another mask. So I'm going to press Shift A on my keyboard, and I'm going to go to input mask. Actually, I could just select this node and duplicate it with Shift D on my keyboard, and I'm going to change this one to hide red. That's what I want, and we're going to add these two masks together. But I might have to actually, I'll have to play around with it. I might have to subtract or invert one of them. I actually can't quite recall. So I'm going to press Shift A on my keyboard. I'm going to add a color and mix node, and I'm going to put that right there. And I'm going to mix together this red and hide red. Now if I want to see what this mask actually looks like, I can plug the result of it that comes out of this mix into my viewer node over here. That's the one that makes the backdrop. So now if I enable this backdrop, I can see the mask itself. And right now it's not doing the right thing. It's mixing the red. If I select this mix and press M to mute it, you can see that it'll show you just where that red line is. It's showing the red lightsaber. But with a mix node with the mix setting, and when you mix it with another mask, it isn't doing the right thing. Let's try changing that to add. Okay, and B, that's not what I want. Do I want multiply? No, multiply is doing almost the right thing. You see, it's keeping only the part where the hide mask, the Brad's head mask, it's keeping only that part, but I want to keep only the other parts. Can I use subtract? Let's see. Aha, I want subtract. If you're interested about why this works, or you're not sure why it works, if I were to show you just the original lightsaber mask, a mask is basically a black and white or grayscale picture. Wherever there's white is where it's going to keep something in a video that you're overlaying. In this case, it's keeping the lightsaber, and wherever it's black, it's not going to keep whatever you're adding onto a video. In other words, it's not going to keep the rest of the white and the entire purple whole video frame. It's only going to keep the white part of it. But when you add two pictures together, if I use the add, and what I can show you is that's the head mask, or the hide red mask. If I were to use the add method instead of mix or subtract, and I'll show you what that looks like, it's actually going to add the white values together. Now black and white values are numerically stored in a computer, so you can imagine if a grayscale picture has 256 levels of brightness or gray, if 0 was totally black and 255 was totally white, well, if you add two black areas from two different images together, you're adding 0 plus 0. That's still 0. So you're going to get black where there was black in both pictures. But if you add an area that's totally white to an area that's totally black, you're adding 255 plus 0. So you're still going to keep, the white part of the image. So when you add two pictures together, what the result is that it just combines the white areas together and then keeps all the black that was there, that was black. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But we don't want to do that. We want to use subtract. And what that will do is it'll take one of the two inputs, one of the masks, and where it was white, it's going to subtract 255, that brightest white, away from anything on the other mask. So you're going to end up taking away 255 where the original lightsaber was, and where everywhere else was in that little head area, which means that it'll all be black. You can't go below 0 or above 255. It just clips it at that. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that helped. If it didn't, sorry for wasting your time. But let's go ahead and connect our little splitter at the end of our node setup to the viewer. And as you can see now, there's a lightsaber going behind Brad's head. And if I press Control Up to unmaximize a window, you can see that it goes right behind his head. If I tap Alt V on my keyboard and then Alt and pan over, it's going behind his head. But just like in Star Wars, it will glow because that's what you get with a lens, including your eye. It'll glow above him. I used to put, when I was doing this effect, this mask to cut away the lightsaber after the glow, but then it would have a very harsh edge, and that didn't look good. So I figured this system out, which is a lot better. So we'll get rid of the backdrop here, and if you want to pause the video to get that set up, we're using a subtract node, which came from a mix. That's what it's called when you add it. Color and mix, and then you can change it from mix to subtract mode, and we added in the hide red mask. Now, just like any other mask in this video, we have to animate it. So on this first frame, we've got our red record button still turned on, somewhat unfortunately. But I'm going to go to frame 2. As you can see in frame 2, the mask is still needed because the red lightsaber is still behind Brad's head. So I'll tap A a few times, I'll move the mask, and if it's not quite the right shape, I can adjust it, and as you can see, it's as easy as that. I'll go to the next frame, it's still needed, I'll tap A a few times, and that looks pretty good to me. And you can always watch how it looks over here. And why is that looking kind of weird? I'm actually not sure why that looks kind of weird. It looks kind of diagonal to me, like it's going down. I really don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe somebody in the comments section can solve that problem. I really have not seen that before. What happens if I make the point right there? That's interesting. I don't know the answer to that one. Alright, so I've actually fixed this problem after I recorded this video. I discovered that this problem that we had where the outline of the head that we're subtracting from the lightsaber, the reason why it looks a bit funny in some places and we're getting this V shape, if I actually take my subtract node and I plug it into the final viewer. I know this is very small, but I can do it. The viewer right there. We're getting a not very nice edge there. So how we can fix that is really simple. It turns out that when you subtract one mask from another, so we're subtracting the hide red, or making the white part of that take away from the white part and the black part of the original lightsaber mask. It turns out that all you have to do to fix this is check this clamp. Apparently, it does not restrict your values when you subtract 255 away from 0. It actually goes into the negative. So this clamp button makes sure that the values in your mask can't go below 1 or above 255. And that now you can see these look good. In the rest of the video, it will not be fixed, but that's your solution. If you keep going, you'll eventually find a spot where the mask is no longer needed. So it is needed on frame 3, or frame 4 rather. So I'll put it on that frame, but then on frame, oh, it's still needed there. So I'll put it right there, adjust it a little bit. And on this frame, it is actually not needed. On frame 7 of my video, you can see it goes behind him a lot, so I actually don't need it there. So if you don't need it on one frame, you need to make sure that you have a keyframe on either side of this frame as well. But on this frame, what I'll do is just grab the whole thing, I'll select it with the A key, and just move it way off to the side. And it can live out there because he's never going to go over there, and therefore it won't interrupt, it won't mess up the lightsaber at all. On the very next frame, it's not needed at all. On the next frames, it's not needed at all, and I don't think it's needed at all for a lot of the video. Let's kind of just go through using the arrow keys on the keyboard, and I don't see it going behind anything. No, I think I just got away with it right there. It goes behind his head, but it's never on both sides of his head in that case. And how are we doing? We are good. We have made it through 100 frames. So the same thing goes with the other lightsaber. We need to make a hide mask for the other lightsaber. Do we need to mask that one at all? I'm going to go and switch my mask just to see the green one. Actually, I'll just leave it on hide red for now. I'm going to scrub through. Does it ever go behind anything and stick out the other side? By the way, if there's ever any frames that you don't see a lightsaber in, like on this frame, if I go and look at my green mask, it's just sitting up there for those frames. So the lightsaber mask is right there, and then in the next frame you can't actually see it, so I just put the whole mask up there, way out of range, so the blurriness doesn't show up in the frame. Same thing in that frame, and then it goes back to where it needs to be when you can see that green lightsaber toy. Again, do I need? No, I don't even need to make a hide mask for the green lightsaber, so I am good. I'm going to save this project. I saved it while I was working on the masks when I paused the video, so I'll save that file again. So the next thing is to make a flash whenever two lightsabers hit, and so we're going to make that effect again using masks. So I'm going to go into my movie clip editor window, and we're going to press this little plus to make a new mask. And where do we have a hit? So our very first hit happens at frame 28. So on frame 28, we're going to make a flash mask with an exclamation point just for fun. And you can study the Star Wars movies all you like. It'll depend on what you are going for and which Star Wars movie you watch, but there is a bit of a yellow flash, and so you want to make sure that they're not too big and not too small. Otherwise it'll look kind of weird. What I like to do is I like to hold control and make kind of a star pattern with mostly the bigger points of the star going left and right on my screen. So I'm going to hold control and then click and click and click and click. I'm going to make kind of a cross looking like star thing like that. And then I'll connect those last ones up with mask and toggle cyclic. So I've got a star. And we're going to just take that basic mask and we're going to add it on top of the final video in our node editor window. So let's go ahead and use it. It's called Flash. I'll do a quick save and click. The flash will get added right before the end of the video, so I can grab our final nodes and move them over to make give us room. I'm going to press Shift A on my keyboard. In fact, I'll make this window bigger so you can see what's going on. I'll press Shift A. I'm going to add an input alpha over. It's under color, pardon me, alpha over, and we'll put it right on that noodle in our main path after the two lightsabers. And we're going to give it a yellowy whitey color, and if you look at the result with backdrop you can see it all turns yellow. So let's go ahead and bring in the mask. I'm going to go to input and mask and bring in the flash mask and plug it into the factor, and let's see what it looks like. It does not look very good, so let's go ahead and blur it. I'm going to bring in a filter and a blur. The default, by the way, is called Gaussian blur. That's the most common kind of blur in any graphics program like Photoshop or GIMP or anything else, and it just blurs it kind of in the way that you'd expect something to blur. And I'm going to try blurring it 30 by 30 and maybe a bit more, let's say 60 by 60. And I don't quite like the way it looks because it looks too, flat in color. So instead of using an alpha over, what I can do with that alpha over is just detach it, and we'll get rid of it because I'm going to use a different way of combining things together. So with that node selected, I'm going to go to node, and I want detach. Where is detach links? Right there. And as you can see, it disconnects it from everything, but it leaves that noodle intact. So now I'll get rid of that alpha over with the X key on my keyboard. Instead of using alpha over, I'm going to use a blend mode like you'd have in GIMP or Photoshop. And the way we can get to that is via color and that mix node again. And so this will combine the color of our yellow with our video in a more interesting way. So there's white. I change it to a yellowy color, and I will plug the factor in. And mix is pretty boring, but if I change it to linear light, you get a different, that's kind of a better effect. Soft light, probably not what you want. I find that add looks pretty good, or multiply might be what you want, or subtract. You can play with these to see what you like. Burn might be interesting depending on the color. Let's try add. And if this is too bright for you, you can always change the yellow to a deeper yellow. But what you actually might want to do is you might want to play around with the fall off of your blur of your star. You might also want to make your star bigger or smaller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the blurred mask using a color, and I'm going to use RGB curves. And what RGB curves lets me do, this is the same tool that you'd find in any photo editing program like Photoshop or GIMP or anything like that. It gets one of these bars that you can drag around and warp the brightness and contrast of something. If you don't want a point anymore, you can left click that point and press this little X. But I'm going to put RGB curves into this noodle, and if you drag the top right one down, see how you can affect and make it more the fall off be quicker, so or pardon me, more gradual. If you had it up at the top, it would last in its color for longer, and I think 60 is too much, so I'll try 40 and 40, and maybe I'll make it more gradual like that, and maybe I'll go back and I will make my star wider. And notice how I'm following with these up and down bits. I'm following the lightsabers. Okay, so I'm sort of happy with that. What I could actually do is I could duplicate this add node. I'm going to hide the backdrop just so we're not distracted. And now that I have two add nodes, I can use this setup that we have twice, and I can make it more intense just by having the same thing added twice. And I can adjust the second one. I can change the color if I want to have sort of a different color and it layered in an interesting way. So maybe I'll make it more orangey. That was kind of cool. And then you can animate this. So on this first frame, on this frame 28 where the lightsaber first clashes, maybe it can be kind of a small star. And then on, maybe even get rid of that one a little bit. And then on the frame before, so I'll use my arrow key before they come together. I'm going to select all the points with the A key, and I'll move it up much above the video. And so if I use my arrow keys on my keyboard, if I go one frame next, so frame 28, it's back. If I go back to frame 27, it's off the video. It's off the video until frame 28. And notice how I have my keyframes there because I've got my record button turned on. So now on frame 29, I can follow the lightsaber, so I'll press A few times and then G to grab, and I'll grab it and I'll make it a little bit bigger. And then maybe on the next frame, I'll press A few times and grab it and make it a little bit bigger. And I'll zoom out over here so you can see what that looks like. And then on this frame, I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller. And on the very next frame, I'm going to make it, quite a bit smaller. We get rid of the points a little bit. And I'm going to take it on this frame and scale it down so we only have a little bit. And then on this frame, I'll maybe rotate it and put it where it's colliding. And then on this frame, if they're still together, this is a bit of a slide. And maybe I'll tap S and then Y on my keyboard to scale it up and down in that direction, and then S and then X on my keyboard to make it a bit more pointy again, like a star. And then on the next frame, they should be separated. So I'm going to get rid of it off the screen. So now I've got a flash. And I could do that again, but I won't bother. They hit 3 times. The next time they collide is on frame 74. So on frame 73, I want to make sure I have a keyframe of those mask points up above the video. And I'm just going to press G and then click to move them slightly so I have a keyframe there. And then on frame 74, when they're actually together, are they actually together there, or are they not quite? No, they're not quite, I don't think. So what I might do is just put a little tiny star right there and tap S and then Y because they're about to connect. So they might start sparking, and then in the next frame I might rotate it. And so I will skip over this part of the video. We'll come back in just a sec. Alright, so I finished making the 3 flashes of the lightsabers colliding, as you can see in my dope sheet window. Again, because I'm in the mask mode of the dope sheet window, or mask sub mode of the dope sheet window, I've got a layer for each one of the sets of keyframes for each mask. So I've got a section for a mask right there, as you can see up there. It expands, and this is probably the trickiest part to get right of a lightsaber duel, is to make the flashes actually look good. If they're too small, they look kind of weird. If they're too big, they look kind of weird. If I look at mine, especially in some of the later ones, they look a bit too yellow, so I might want to adjust the coloring of them a little bit, and I might want to even turn down the effect. I've got it doubled, right? So I might want to add a color and RGB curves, and I can turn down the second one quite a lot if I don't like how bright it is, and I can really finesse it. And the only way I'm ever going to know if I like the way that it looks is by rendering it out to a video, and that way I can actually watch it in real time. So I think we are almost good. Before I start rendering out though, I want to do some very quick digital color grading or adjusting of the actual footage. So what I can do is, before it outputs to my viewer, I'll make this bigger so you can see, before it outputs to my viewer and my composite at the end and the splitter, I'm going to add some adjusting nodes into this path, and I'll bring up a color, or add a color, and I believe it's called hue correct. This is a neat node if you haven't ever played with it before. It lets you actually saturate colors specified by their hue, so you can turn up the saturation of only the red, and then you can turn down the saturation of a selected color range, or all the color ranges except for one. So if you want to make just one color exist in the picture, you can. So I'm going to drag this into there. And because we filmed this on a bright summer day, the sky is very blue, so if I pull these blue points down, you'll see that the color just gets sucked out of the blue. And you can add more points. If you want to pull out all the blue, you can do that. And let's say we don't want any green, we can take out the green. Don't worry about the green lightsaber, because that's not actually, we'll want to put this before we get to the lightsabers, so we're not affecting the green lightsaber as well. If I bring everything back and I go to where you can see the green lightsaber, yeah, we're taking away the green lightsaber. So I'm going to, with this node selected, I'm going to go to node and where is detach, or yeah, there we go, detach links, and I'm going to put it before we add our lightsabers, right after we add our footage, so right there. And as you can see now, again, that's right after our footage, that our sky becomes less blue and intense. And I might actually want to take out I'll add the backdrop again so you can see it over here. I might take out green as well, so we don't have all that happy. And we'll keep the yellowy colors a little bit, because we want to keep their skin tones kind of. And I'm sort of happy with that. I'm going to add now some of my own colors on top. So I'm going to press Shift A. I'm going to add a color balance, and that way I get the ability to change the bright areas and the dark areas and the kind of mid colors. I kind of assume that this is how that works. So I'm going to make everything kind of bluey. And then I think this one over here does the light colors more. Maybe I'll make the whole thing darker, and maybe make some of the kind of greenish, and maybe I'll add a color brightness and contrast, and I'll turn up the contrast and make it a kind of maybe down the contrast actually, and make the brightness not as much. So now I've got a very different looking scene. Of course, I could add any color adjusting nodes to make it look good, but I don't quite like the look of this. Let's turn things up a little bit. There we go. I think I'm kind of happy with that. Sure. Okay, so we've got the scene and we're ready to render it out. The only problem that still exists is the fact that sometimes the wrong lightsaber is in front when they are kind of over one another. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to render out the entire thing to a folder. So I'm going to go to my camera tab in the properties window, and under output I'll click on this little folder And in my desktop, I'm going to make a new output folder. So I'll click on this little folder button with a star. That makes a new folder. I'm going to call this Saber Duel rendered frames, and then I'll press enter, and then I'll click on that folder name. So we're going to render our pictures inside. I'll leave the second line blank to let the photos auto name themselves. I'm going to output to, again, JPEGs at 95% quality, and I'll do a quick Command S and click to save, and I'm going to render out the entire thing. And again, this happens quite quickly. Alright, so it rendered out all 100 frames. It took about 2 minutes to do that, so not too bad at all. It has to compute all of the different masks on all the frames and all the layers of how you're combining them together and blurring and things like that. So each frame does take a few moments to render out, but again, it's quite fast, especially compared to the Cycles render engine or something like that. I'll press escape, and then I'll do a quick save, and then on my desktop I should have that set of frames right there, and if I open one of them up, you can see it looks pretty good to me. Let's fix one last issue. There are some frames in my animation, I'll make this window smaller, where the wrong lightsaber is in front. You can see that because of my node setup, I'm going to uncheck the backdrop for a sec. The video footage goes along and it gets things added to it before it finally gets out to the final output over here at the end on the right hand side. And in that path we have an alpha over which adds the purple lightsaber first, and then it adds the green lightsaber from all of these nodes, and then it adds the flashes on top. But because it adds the green lightsaber, after the purple one, the green one will be on top. And sometimes we don't want that. And let's see when we don't want that. I think on the very first strike, let's see if it actually affects, because we've got that flash there too. In this case, the green one, in fact, I don't think that one actually matters. And I'm not too concerned about that one, to be quite honest. Do we have another one where we have a better example? We might do right there. So right, if I'm scrubbing through 40s on the arrow keys on my keyboard, right there, it's in the wrong order. So we're actually just going to fake it. We're going to render out those frames again, but we're going to switch the order by moving our nodes around just a slight bit. So on frame 46, and frame 47, and frame 48, and we'll say frame 49, they're in the wrong order. So I'm just going to render out those frames again. So down here on my timeline, I'm going to start at frame 46 and end at frame 49, and I'm going to switch the order of 2 nodes around. This alpha over makes the purple join up with the main path of noodle of nodes, but I'm going to detach it. So with that one node selected, I'm going to, I'll uncheck backdrop for a sec. This node connects the purple lightsaber. I'm going to go to node and detach links, and then it needs to go after the green lightsaber to make it go on top. Now I can just join the purple lightsaber back up to the bottom port, so it'll be in front. So now during the entire scene, the purple lightsaber is on top, and I can just render out those 46, 47, 48, 49, 4 frames. And so I have the frames start net set, so I can go now and make sure my output is going to be the same folder. I want to have overwrite checked, so it'll overwrite the old frames, and I'll click on animation, and it'll just render out those 4 frames. So we can do that process for any time we need to switch the frames over. It's kind of a cheat, but hey, this is effects. Okay, so I think we're good. Is there any other times when the lightsabers need to be fixed? Let's actually look at the original video and see. The green lightsaber is on top. Let's go look at that 46. Yeah, the red lightsaber should have been on top. Good, we fixed it for that one. On this one, it's in the back. And for this one, I think we need to fix it for a few frames there. let's say frame 92, 93, 94, 95, all the way to the end. So I'm going to go from frame 92 to 100, and we still have the node set up so the purple one's in front. Let's go ahead and do a quick save, and I'll render out those frames. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this file. In fact, I'm going to close Blender now because we have our rendered out frames. The very last step is to put it into a video file and to add the sound effects. So I'm going to go back into Blender, and we're going to change back to our video sequence editor. And we'll change it to have both the tracks and the video screen with that little button right there. I'm going to add this time an image, although we're going to bring in multiple images in a strip. So I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to go to Saber Dual Rendered Frames and press A to select all the pictures, and there I've got it. I've got the video strip. You can see the video up here. I need to make sure my frames are set to the right size at 100%. And if you wanted to, you could add in lightsaber sound effects. Now you can find these on the internet. I'm not going to provide them for you, but as you can see right now on the screen, when I was practicing for this video, I actually went ahead and did go and get those lightsaber effects, and I used the video editor in Blender to bring in sound effects. It's right under the add menu. You can go to add sound, you can add in tracks, and you can trim them with those little triangles on the ends, the start and end of each one of those clips, and you can put the sound effects in the right spot and you can listen to them. The very last step though is to output to a video with sound. So to do that, you're going to change under your camera tab in the properties window, you're going to change the output type to FFmpeg video. This is if you're using Blender 2.79, which is the latest version of Blender before 2.8 comes out. And FFmpeg video lets you get this new encoding section, or the encoding section will only appear if you use, I think, one of the movie types, but FFmpeg video is the best. And we can use one of the presets, the encoding presets. The best one to use is H.264 in MP4. That's the industry standard for YouTube. All the streaming websites, all the devices, they all use this one. Is the most universally accepted. And then I can change maybe the quality to high quality, and then I'm pretty good. I can change the output location maybe to my desktop, and I'll call this Saber Duel Finished, and I'll click accept, and I will render out my entire animation from 1 to 100. Let's go ahead and press animation. Okay, so I think we've got it. I'm not sure how those flashes will turn out. Let's see. I'll go to my desktop, and I've got a video called Saber Duel Finished, and let's go see what that looks like. Looks okay. I think I missed one of the flashes somehow. I don't know how that happened. I rushed through it, but it looks pretty good. That will be it for this video. Of course, if you like this video or if you learned something, go ahead and click on that like button below. And if you want to see more videos like this one in Blender and in tech, click on that subscribe button as well. Check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/borncg. That's where I ask you guys questions and make most of my posts and let you guys comment on things, and I respond to you. It's a great place to go check out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.